One thing that has taken everybody by surprise is the resilience of the Indian stock market. I mean, we've gone through an election result that didn't pan out the way that the markets anticipated them to do. We've gone through budgets. We've gone through all kinds of other issues. And the market has just gone one way, and that's up. What do you make of the resilience of the Indian market?
It's baffling, really, because, as I said, that it's a very domestic story. I mean, it's not been driven by foreign investors piling into this country or in any way.
No.
It's all domestic. So, you know, the financialization that's happened out here, I think, is staggering in terms of...
Yeah, banks are now talking about the fact that they're struggling to get deposits because everybody is going to mutual funds.
Yeah, so I think that this has been one of those incredible financialization stories that's taken place. In fact, it's very, very telling. I can observe it because even I don't know what's the framework to use here as to where to call an end to this, right? Because it's already the most expensive market in the world. In terms of, it's already, in terms of, there's the returns over the last 5 years of this market in dollar terms have even exceeded the US in terms of what, what it's done. There really has been no bull market in the world this decade like India. This is a unique bull market unto itself, because also of the breadth of it. Yeah. Like in the US, you had a bull market
largely driven by tech,
concentrated by tech and a few companies at the top. In India's case, it's been extremely broad, like in terms of what's happened. You know, there are various sectors that have, virtually every sector has participated in this bull market. So it's a very unique bull market that we have seen in India. It's the like only bull market in the world, I would say today, literally, the true bull market. The US has, started to show some cracks, are very lopsided. So I think it's a fascinating story to observe. It's the last bull market in the world standing, if not the only bull market of this decade.
And valuations clearly don't matter.
Valuations don't matter, but I've seen markets like this that at times you just have to suspend reality, like Japan in the 1980s. You know, like we could, people kept calling in the mid-1980s, there was so much talk of Japan being overvalued and stuff, and yet from there it doubled in like value. So, that's all I believe, that you can use models to look at markets in a conventional way, but sometimes when those models aren't working, you suspend reality and then you sort of observe to see as to when it observes. Now, of course, as investors, we just have to, we have to be very vigilant because of the fact that these momentum markets can also turn on a dime, which is that something will happen and all of a sudden it'll turn on a dime.
My point is, like, go back to the budget, and everyone said, oh, you've got the long-term capital gains coming in this time around and that's going to take down the markets, and guess what? It didn't, and the markets have gone up another couple of thousand points post that. Yeah,
so as I said, that it's very difficult, when the conventional models aren't working in terms of that, because at the beginning of the year, had you said that this will be the political outcome, and this is, in terms of, these are the couple of other things which will happen. You mentioned budget, whatever. Most people would have said that the market will be down 10, 15%. Instead, it's up that much, there. So I'd say that in terms of there. But yeah, this though is also leading to its own consequences. I mean, one thing which I find very fascinating in India now is that no country has created as many billionaires as India has created this decade, right? In terms of, it's just a staggering number. The billionaire wealth in India now as a share of the overall economy today is 26%, higher than America. There's virtually no major country in the world in this zip code now. You have some small countries with small markets, like a Sweden or something like that, which may, but there is no country in the world. So this billionaire wealth creation that's happened in India, again, it's very broad, right? In terms of we focus on what's happening amongst the top, etc. It's been very broad, even in sectors like manufacturing, which have stagnated otherwise. The value creation has been such that the maximum number of new billionaires created in India this decade have in fact been in the manufacturing sector. It's a staggering disconnect between what's happening in manufacturing, in the economy, and what's happening in the market. So the market's in a totally different zip code. It's doing its own thing. But yeah, in terms of, I observe some of the excesses also. The fact that India now, the billionaire wealth as a share of the economy today.
Is it 26%?
Exactly. Is about the largest in the world of any major nation. I mean, that's really like a statement. I first came up, if you remember, in Breakout Nations with this concept of a billionaire index. At that point in time, it was jarring to me that, billionaire wealth in India as a share of its economy had crossed 10%. And here we are, like more than a decade later, at 26% in terms of billionaire wealth as a share of the economy. So, and we have more than 200 billionaires now, I think, like in this nation. So even in terms of numbers now, It's only US or China, etc., which may be larger with economies that are multiple times our size.
Before I get the audience in, I'm going to throw in one last question. Staying with the India story, what do you believe is the hidden superpower that we don't know of in the India story?
No, like in terms of, I'd say that the part I'd like to see more of in India is that, and I keep saying this to India, that even in the West, I said this even during the elections and stuff like that there's so much focus on the center. It's Delhi, so much talk about just Modi and stuff like that. I'd say that in India, and as you know, we travel a lot, see India, what inspires me the maximum about India is our federalism. The fact that we have so many states which do their own thing. And I'd say that the real big potential kicker for India for here is if we move even to a more competitive federalism kind of system. Like I would like to see that. Less centralization, more competitive federalism. I'd say that for me is, I think, the real hidden strength. It's already playing itself out in some way, but what could really lead to this? When people, as you know, back then, even this year when everyone was panicked about Indian democracy and what's going to happen to it and stuff like that, I felt much more calm, especially after we traveled, because I just felt that our democratic fiber, which comes from the fact that we are a truly federal nation with every state doing its own thing rather than sort of being focused too much on Delhi. I'd say that for me is India's true strength and gave me hope even at some point in time when people are very pessimistic about India's political fabric.
Well, that takes me to a beautiful line from the book where you talk about how capitalism and democracy are soulmates, fair and flawed at the same time. I think that's a perfect opportunity to bring in questions from the audience. Mr. Garg, can I have the microphone sent your way to start with?
Thank you. I think fascinating, Ruchir. Let me begin where you began, American story, and the thesis, I think, which you were saying that American capitalism has done well for the capitalist. 25% of the global GDP, 50% of the stock market's valuable, right? But at the same time, there is so much of sort of misery in the young people, and they're looking for socialism, etc. If you look at the three components of it, the capitalists who own so much of economy, so much of production, so much of capital, value, wealth. The other side, the masses, the poor, the young, who are a little miserable, not earning enough, low wages, and feeling bad about the capitalism. And in the middle, let's say the government, which over the years, if I heard you right, has virtually been, and this is my expression, has been captured by the capitalists. Right. The government borrows 6% of GDP and hands over it to the capitalist by bailing them out wherever they otherwise creating so much of demand for them to sell, which actually adds to their wealth. So what I would like you to sort of a little bit explain that this equation which we have now of very wealthy capitalists capturing the government to serve their interests rather than serve the interests of the people who are feeling miserable because government is not doing. Does it explain the entire way that it works, that actually the capitalism is having the best of the times?
Yeah, I think that's true, which is that people at the top are doing the best. So, I mean, what you have captured in simple terms is roughly the argument that I'm making in the book as well, which is that why is capitalism not working for the average person? And this regulatory capture, like in some ways, like one other thing which I speak about in the book about, and I find very fascinating. Today, most towns in America are dominated by one company. It's what in economic terms we call monopsonies, dominated by one company. So what happens there is that one company then is able to totally dictate its terms to that person in terms of what to do and stuff. And that feels so oppressive for the average person. So yes, I think that, you may have gone one step by saying directly giving it, and I'm saying that these are implicit agreements which are made and stuff. But I'd say that, and you know what the irony is? that some of the top capitalists that I speak to in America, especially when in the financial market side, they agree with this. So, like some of the, if I can say so, some of the most favorable reviews and stuff have, or people who have backed this book have come from such people who agree with the diagnosis, but they're like, hey, we are benefiting from it for now, it's fine. But I think that you're totally right about that.
Thing slightly differently. The point I'm making that it's working very well for the capitalists. It's not failing for them. It's failing for the country, for the poor.
Yes, yes.
The way the government is funded now, it's not funded by taxes. It's funded by borrowings. And
Yes.
who lends to the government? It's the rich who lends. So they are having, again, best of the both world. You lend, you earn interest, and that money comes
Right.
back to you
Right.
for your payments, and you don't have to pay taxes. So is it not the one which is actually working very well for the capitalists? And can that kind of interest and the hold and the dominance of the capitalist be actually broken by the broken governments?
Right, but I'm saying that, as I said, so that at some point in time, the government will run out of money, right? Which is that it's very easy to spend other money. Yeah. So I feel that if nothing can go on forever, it won't.